In this unit, we're just going to have a quick review on the different cycles, the different ways that those elements that are, or those compounds that are important to life processes, to the environmental processes, are cycled through the environment. We call them biogeochemical cycles, bio meaning life, geo meaning part of Earth, and then chemical obviously being the chemical part of it. So let's go ahead and look at these. We know these are just the way that they move between the living and non-living parts of the environment. The non-living or the abiotic parts are going to be your water, your soil, your atmosphere. That includes rocks for the soil. That includes rain, as well as streams and rivers for water. Then the obviously the living would be the biotic side, all of your living organisms. Main cycles are water, carbon, phosphorus, and nitrogen. You've looked at these before in the past, so we're just going to do a quick highlight of these 4 cycles again. Make sure we're good with what's going on in each one and how these are cycled through between living and non-living parts of the environment. Water cycle is obviously the easiest. You've heard it more times than you've heard the others. Now let's look at these terms in relation to this picture. All right, precipitation. If you first look at the picture, we know precipitation is when water, either it could be frozen water, it could be liquid water, falls from the sky to the earth. Infiltration, another term, is when that water is going to be absorbed into the ground, usually after a rainfall. You'll get that process occur. Percolation, once it's absorbed into the ground, there is a filtering process that's going to occur where water will percolate through the different rock layers. Maybe it's through different, maybe like sand sediment versus rocky sediment versus clay, but it'll get that chance to percolate or filter once it gets absorbed through infiltration. And then once it gets filtered, the filtering process is important. It removes contaminants and those types of things. Then it reaches the groundwater, that water table under the ground, which is where the water is stored and used by us or by plants, other organisms. Runoff, obviously, if it's through precipitation, if you have runoff occurring, it's going to occur from high elevation to low elevation, maybe down hills or mountains, forming streams and getting into rivers, that type of thing. And then obviously evaporation. If you have standing water, whether it be in a lake or a river, even in the ocean to a smaller extent, there is water that is evaporating and escaping back into the atmosphere. And then transpiration. We don't think about transpiration very much, but remember about plants. Plants use water as well. Transpiration allows plants to take, especially tall plants like sequoia trees or redwood trees. This transpiration process allows plants to take water in through the roots and then pull that water from the roots up the 150, 200 feet to the tops of the trees where the leaves are, because ultimately that's where the water is needed in the leaves for photosynthesis. And obviously other parts of the tree needs it as well, but photosynthesis is what needs it. So this transpiration allows that to happen. And remember, that's when the water evaporates and then those gases are released through the stomata of the leaf. That pressure difference is kind of like sucking a drink through a straw, is allowing that water to move. So transpiration. All right, the carbon cycle. To a lesser extent, but you've still heard of this quite a bit, along with the water cycle. We know carbon is something that animals release, especially mammals, reptiles, birds are going to release carbon dioxide. The technology we use, transportation, industry is going to release carbon dioxide. How that is taken back in and cycled back through the system is what we're going to look at here. We know carbon enters the cycle from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. Right? Plants take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. They're going to use the They're going to fix the carbon in photosynthesis or from carbon dioxide through carbon fixation. Then they're going to be able to use it to form sugars. Carbon is returned back to the atmosphere, obviously through respiration. Any animal, whether it be a human, a cow, a deer, a lizard, a rabbit, okay, they're going to go, the mammals, the reptiles, the birds especially, are going to go through respiration. They're going to give off carbon dioxide. They'll also give off some water vapor during that process as well. But it's mainly carbon dioxide. And the carbon, remember, the carbon dioxide that is given off through respiration from animals, when those animals breathe out, comes from cell respiration through the process of making energy. But you have respiration, you also have combustion, right, burning of those fossil fuels through transportation and industry purposes, forest fires to a smaller extent will also release carbon, burning of trees and forests, because forests are big carbon sinks. They store a lot of carbon in their leaves for photosynthesis processes. That the burning of natural wildfires, and the burning of forests will release large amounts of carbon as well. And then erosion, breaking down of rocks into sediments, will also release that trapped carbon that's in certain types of rocks like limestone, which is a calcium carbonate type rock. And then decomposition, everything has to be cycled. The carbon stored in living organisms, once it gets decomposed, will be put back into the system that way. Okay, so we've heard, you should be good with water cycle and carbon cycle. You've heard about them enough. The nitrogen one is one that maybe you're not as familiar with. And this picture shows you some of the terms that maybe you haven't heard of before, like nitrogen fixation or denitrification or nitrification. These different processes that bacteria put nitrogen through to make it a usable form. So let's look at the nitrogen cycle. Why is nitrogen used? Let's get that out of the way first of all. Okay, all living things need nitrogen to help make proteins and to help build DNA. Okay, you get rid of old cells, new cells have to replace them, you have to make new DNA. You've always got to have proteins. Proteins help with everything from functionality through immune system, brain development, growth, transport, energy, consumption. So proteins are used for everything. So you got to have proteins in DNA. 70% of the atmosphere, roughly 70%, is made of nitrogen. So there's nitrogen everywhere. Okay, it's just not necessarily in a usable form yet. So it has to be changed to a usable form before living organisms like plants and animals can use it. So what can happen is bacteria play a big role in making nitrogen a usable form. The nitrogen in the atmosphere. So nitrogen in the gas form that's in the atmosphere, bacteria can take it in and can convert it to ammonia. This is a first stage in making nitrogen usable by plants and animals. This process where bacteria can convert nitrogen gas found in the atmosphere to ammonia is nitrogen fixation. Once they do that, they can take that ammonium and they can turn it into nitrates and nitrites, which are the usable forms that can be taken up by plants, and then when animals eat those plants and then other animals eat those animals, they'll get those nitrates. When bacteria can take that ammonia and make those nitrates, that's called nitrification. Okay, so these two processes tie in together. Nitrogen fixation, making the gas into ammonia. This is what bacteria do, and then turning that ammonia into nitrates, which plants and animals can use, which is nitrogen fixation. This is a role bacteria plays, so it's a key role. If we didn't have these processes, we would not be able to take in extra nitrogen, so we wouldn't be able to build more DNA, we wouldn't be able to obtain more protein, that type of thing. There's also one called ammonification, and obviously that's that's converting ammonia back, kind of the reverse process, if you will, and all of this is done by bacteria though. So that's kind of the way nitrogen works. Now obviously decomposition is going to release nitrates, and bacteria is going to turn those through the reverse process through ammonification back into nitrogen gas. So the cycle gets completed that way. All right, then the phosphorus cycle. To a lesser extent, phosphorus is also needed. Once again, a good picture of showing how phosphorus is pushed through the cycle. You have phosphorus in different forms that's held within different types of rocks, like phosphates that are held in different types of rocks. Those are broken down through soil and erosion. They can flow through runoff into streams where they get mixed with the detritus and other things and formed into rocks at the bottoms of water beds. Those can be the water that carries phosphates through runoff can get soaked through infiltration and percolation into the soil. Your decomposers then will have a key in taking those in and using those, but your plants will also be able to take that in through the water as well. So let's look at some of this. We need phosphorus for a number of different things, but the key ingredient for phosphorus, or the key thing that phosphorus is used for, is once again DNA. Remember, DNA it has phosphorus in it. It has nitrogen in it. It's got other things like carbon and hydrogen as well, but it needs phosphorus and it needs nitrogen. So the phosphorus cycle will help make sure that when plants can take it in and then animals can take it in, that there's phosphorus available. It's a very simple process compared to some of the other ones we looked at, but you're looking at that picture to give you a nice example of how the water cycle helps in turn transport or move the phosphorus cycle.